Hi everyone, welcome back to my top 500 games. We are continuing on today with number 339, and that is Kirby's Dream Land. I actually have a story surrounding this game. It was the third year of primary school that I was in, and I believe it would have been around 1997 or so, around that time. And we had one of those days at school where it was like a play day. Say it was the end of the year, or it was the end of the school time just before some holidays were coming up, and the idea was the kids could bring in toys to play with. And my friend Andrea, she brought in her Game Boy with Kirby's Dream Land on it, and I didn't have a Game Boy at this point because I got my Game Boy for my 10th birthday, which would have been in 1998, so it was just before I got my Game Boy. Of course, I was really into games, like, video games, computer games, whatever you want to call them. And so, whilst other people had brought in all these things, I just wanted to play Kirby's Dream Land. So I would pester her. I would say to her, "Oh, please, can I ever go on Kirby? Please, 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 I want to go." And she wouldn't let me. She did eventually, but she just wanted to play it for herself. But she did eventually let me play it, and so I did. And I enjoyed it. I actually got this game soon after I got my Game Boy. What's funny is that I can tell the story, and I sort of have this memory in my mind about how long things take, like gaps between events and stuff, but it's amazing how relatively small these memories can be, because I got my Game Boy in 1998, September 30th, 1998, because that's when I turned 10 years old. And shortly afterwards, in 1998, we went on holiday to Ibiza, and I have memories of sitting on the balcony at Ibiza whilst they played the Samba de Janeiro song, which is the song that they played all the time, and just sitting on the balcony at night playing Kirby's Dream Land. That's one of my fond memories of this game. But what's strange about that is that really my memory of getting Kirby's Dream Land, it comes after getting my Game Boy quite significantly, but we went to Ibiza in October, so it must have been within weeks or so. I remember we went to this place called Fantasy Computers, which I went there recently, and they just sell games at really high prices. It's really bad, and more recently they closed down. But that's where I got this game from, and I was really excited to play it. But as for the actual game itself, the game is very easy. It's like a platform game, but you can fly, which on paper sounds ludicrous, but yeah, it's a platform game. You can fly. The idea is you suck up the enemies so that you can spit them back out and knock them against other enemies, or you can swallow them, or you can like fly and then shoot out stuff from when you're flying and all that. And there's only a few levels, and then when you get to the final level, it's sort of like a boss rush where you go to the different levels and then you take on the different bosses again, and then you fight the final boss. And I loved the final boss music. That was something that really stood out to me. And then once you completed that, you were given a little trick as to how to unlock the extra harder difficulty, so you could play through again on a harder difficulty. I really did have a lot of fun with this game at the time, but it's strange because I remember playing it many times, trying to get through, but equally, I can play it now and know that it's really easy. Well, that's strange because there's games from even further in the past that I played on the Mega Drive or Amiga that are now really hard, but back then I don't think I struggled with as much as I did with Kirby. I don't understand. It's weird how things like that work, but I am just going to move on from that. And I am going to go on to number 338, and that is Mega Man, the original Mega Man. Now, I am not a massive Mega Man fan, and I know that there's a certain group of people to which Mega Man is absolutely amazing, but I've only played a few Mega Man games. This is the first Mega Man game, so it basically introduced the idea of choosing which robot master you want to fight so you can unlock their power, and then go around in a cycle. Use each other robot master's weakness against each other and all that. I actually didn't play the first Mega Man too much. I think that it really doesn't stand up as well, and I know it's not really noticed as well. The level design was a bit off, I suppose, at sometimes. Like Elec Man, I think, was at a pretty stupid level. But besides that, it was alright. It was a decent platform shooting game, but I'm not a big Mega Man fan like other people are. Number 337 is Limbo. Limbo is one of the more recent puzzle platformy type game and this became a rather common trend. I don't know if it's still going on, but it became a rather common trend whereby you would have these puzzle platform games where you would play as this rather small character and there's a big scary world out there and you have to go around and figure things out and it's all puzzly. Now Limbo is very silhouette based, so everything's black or white or some variation of grey, and you have to solve puzzles. And the main thing that sticks out to me, my main memory of this game, is where you've got the giant spider and you have to maneuver the bear trap so that when it tries to stab you, it will stick its leg in the bear trap. That's the main thing that sticks out in my mind when I'm thinking about that game. But I'm going to move on to number 336, and that is One and One Story. Now, this is a Flash game that I'm surprised hasn't got more traction, because this also falls within the realm of what I was saying about with Limbo, where it's very dark, very atmospheric type game, but it's just a Flash game. And to me, this is an example of a good Flash game. Basically, the way that One and One Story works is that it's a platformer, basically, but it's one of those 2D platformers, but it's more puzzle based. And the idea is you have two characters, you have the male character and the female character, and your goal is to get them to join, so they all become one and one, basically. That's the gist of it, I guess. And the way that it works is that as you progress through the levels, it will present to you new mechanics as to how you interact the different characters between each other, and they will always provide some sort of weird, just some silly poetic justification, like, whenever I see you I come running. So, for example, you'll have one level whereby you control the male character, and then whenever you are on equal line of sight with the female character, she'll come running towards you. Even if that leads towards her death. The idea is you have to move platforms around so that you can soften the blow from certain drops, so you can make those drops and all that lot. And different stages have different themes to them. So you'll have some levels whereby it will say something like, wherever you go I'll follow, and in those levels you control both characters at once. And what's interesting about this is that even given this, they will give you the same level design, the same level setup multiple times, but because it's presented with different mechanics, you have to approach it a different way. And I thought that this game, when it comes to these types of games, when it comes to Flash games that are usually games that you can just play and then dismiss, this is one that I would expect to, I suppose, get more traction. But as far as I know, it hasn't. Number 335 is, and I'm going to have quite a lot to say about this because it's going to be, I suppose, quite negative the way that I'm going to talk about this game. And that game is South Park: The Stick of Truth. I played this game right at the start of 2015. The idea behind this game is that it's like an episode of South Park, which if you like South Park and all that, then you will like the story of this game. I guess, I suppose, I don't know. It's very much rooted in the fact that it is South Park, with many South Park references. For example, one of the collectibles is the Chimpokemon, and you unlock superpowers by farting. Things like that. So what I think makes this game interesting, aside from just being a South Park game, and I do like South Park, but what I think makes this game interesting mostly is the way that you have to maneuver around levels. And to be honest, I think that is one of the most points of worth praising about this game. The way that you do maneuver around and you unlock powers so you can go to new areas in a very Zelda-esque sort of way, I suppose. But also, the battles themselves can be decent. There is a little bit of strategy there. I mean, it's South Park. You can't expect deep strategy from a South Park game. I would be very surprised if there was deep strategy, but there isn't. And there is a bit of strategy there, but what really, really gets to me about this game is that, as far as I can tell, and people can argue about this, and this isn't an argument that I really like going into because it generally divulges into a set few arguments that people repeat and it gets boring, I have a hard time necessarily calling this game an RPG, because when you level up, and everything to do with leveling up as far as I can tell, except maybe the equipment, although I'm not too sure about that, everything about the leveling system is a complete facade. You will fight wolves at level 1, and they will do, if you have 100 health, they will do 20 damage, and then if you have 10,000 health, they will do 2,000 damage. Everything is scaled So all that's happening when you level up is the numbers go up, but nothing actually changes. It's just all the numbers go up. It's really stupid, and I really feel like they did this because they didn't want to make an actual leveling system where, you know, you have to consider the different strengths of areas and stuff. They just wanted to make a game with turn-based battles, and they did do that. And they also did the silly thing of making it more interactive by pressing buttons at the right time, which is a lot of rubbish. Now, to me, the only really interesting fight in this game would be the Al Gore fight, who's basically the super boss of the game. But come on, you make it just the super boss? Come on. Like, see, what gets on my nerves is when people say things like turn-based battles are stupid, and then you have a game like this which tries to make a joke of it, saying this is how we do things, we have to take turns because that's the rules of the game, basically making fun of it. And okay, just to make this clear, I know South Park make fun of everything. This isn't me digging at South Park, but what I'm saying is that this is an example of something that makes people think that turn-based is all boring and this is all you do is wait around taking turns. But what they're failing to realise, and they also did this when they announced the South Park something butthole, whatever it's called, Fractured Butthole, that's the name of it, haha pun, is that, well, the combat in that game sucked. And I'm going to say, well, I suppose it kind of did, but don't blame turn-based combat on that. Blame their inability or their undesire to actually add depth to that system. But I don't hate this game. Like, I know some people out there who just hate this game. I am not one of those people. Trust me, I am not one of those people. I think this game is subpar on the RPG scale. I mean, better than Last Rebellion, but come on, right? But I think that's enough ranting about South Park Stick of Truth. I'm going to move on to number 334, which is Bejeweled Blitz. Now, I talked about Zuma Blitz recently, and the same basically applies here. It's a PopCap game, the Bejeweled franchise, but it's made in this competitive Facebook scene whereby you can get multiple powers and you can get weekly scoreboards and you have to try to beat people's score and all that, and you will accumulate points and you'll accumulate coins from doing things. And to me, that's what makes this game above, say, Bejeweled 2, is that there is this sort of, even though it's not really a leveling system, so to speak, it's as close as you can get, I suppose, given that, well, no, not as close as you can get, but it's on the way to being that. It's sort of a step towards that. And I do like that, but really there isn't anything new to say about that. Number 333 is Mad Riders. This is a game I got on the PS3, and I actually played this not too long ago. It was sometime in 2015, I believe, that I played this game, and I like this game. It's, you basically are racing on motorbikes, and that's the best way to describe it. You will have levels whereby you have to go through rings to like get speed up, and there's different types of scenarios and all that, but it's also kind of like one of those mobile setup games where you'll have a series of levels and you have to unlock X amount of stars by completing each of the levels, and that's basically the premise of the game, and that is what the game is. And I had fun playing this game. If only it didn't crash all the time. I don't know why, but this game, for some reason, it would just crash. Like, I think I had this game crash on me like 4 or 5 times. You would just be playing and everything would just freeze. I don't know what's wrong with this game as to why that would happen, but that is what happened. Number 332 is Marvel Pinball. This is part of the Zen Pinball series, I suppose. I believe it's made by Zen Studios. It certainly has the same setup and all that, the same type of interface, apart from these tables are Marvel themed. So, like, you've got your Wolverine one, and you've got, I think there's an Iron Man one, I'm not so sure. I am not, I'll just make this clear, like I said all the way back when I talked about Fantastic Four, I don't know about Marvel and DC and all that. I know a few of the staples, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, it was a decent game. I really can't think of much else to say about it, so I'm not going to. Number 331 is Battleship, the version that is on Pogo.com. Now, If you remember my ruling, I said that I am not going to include mere duplications of physical games, and Battleships is a physical game. But what makes this particular version different, and so as to why I'm excluding it from that rule, is that it has power-ups that you can get, which is like I know the sort of like this taboo against adding power-ups and things to traditional games, but I generally think that, you know, it's just a different variation on the game. It's not a problem. It may be better or worse, but it's just not a problem. But I did have fun playing with this game. Now, everyone should know what Battleship is. Basically, you have this setup, this grid where you put down these battleships in the places that you want to put them, and then you call out a position on the grid, and they have to say whether you hit or missed one of their ships, and the first person to sink all the other players' ships first wins. Now, the power-ups in this game in particular include things like a bomb that will target an entire row at once, and there's also ones where it will home in and attack a ship head on without you having to aim. And the way that you unlock these is that you have to fire missiles within these highlighted squares, and within each highlighted squares you have to make sure that you hit the right thing in order to trigger this ability that you can get. Now, I have a tactic with Battleship. Actually, before I actually get into that, I am actually going to a little bit of a story about how I had a game of Battleship with somebody from this weird course that I was doing one time, and we had to play Battleship just like on pen and paper. And I understand that this has got nothing to do with the Pogo game, but this is just a story worth telling, I think. The way that we did it was we did it on paper and we just played Battleship with each other. I don't remember why we were doing this, but the person I was playing up against was so bad at Battleship. I mean, there's a few core strategies that you just need to know. Like, for example, if you miss a target, if you shoot something somewhere and you miss, I mean, this is me giving you Battleship tactics here. So if you win games, you need to thank me for this. If you go to hit a target and you miss, you should then not hit the targets that are directly adjacent to it, either horizontally or vertically, because there are fewer variations that a ship could be in that space. So what you have to do is you have to sort of hit diagonally. So you can go one diagonally, because that way there's going to be equal amount of variations. And the closer that you put them, that is, that you fire your missiles towards each other, the fewer variations that are going to be. So you're going to have to find this very particular pattern where you always hit as many targets as you can. But also, if you hit, say you hit one target and it's a miss, and you hit the one that's two spaces above, and then you hit the one that's one below that and to the left one, and then the one that's two to the right of that one. So you've got kind of this square on its side shape that you've just formed. You can deduce that the one in the middle isn't going to be a ship, because the minimum size of a ship is two spaces. So you basically eliminate smaller areas, and that's how you play Battleship. If you can get the two length ship first, that's just the best, because now you can leave empty these 2x2 squares and blast all of the ones around them and clear out so much space by deducing so little. So that's like the good technique as to how to play Battleship. But the person I was playing against was just the worst. Like, I have not seen anyone play Battleship so badly. I'm talking about, like, they'd say A1, miss, A2, miss, A3, miss, and then you think they'd go somewhere else, but no, they'd go B1, miss. They are just awful at Battleship. As for the question of where you should position your battleships, the technique that I usually use, and this is me giving away techniques, so if I'm going to play Battleship against any of you, this is me giving away my techniques. The way that I tend to play battleships is that I will sometimes make the battleships join each other, but like at a diagonal angle rather than horizontally or vertically. I generally won't make them connect horizontally or vertically, because that way, if they hit one, they have more variety that they can go to, because generally if they hit target, they'll go for the ones around it, so they'll be able to hit more targets that way. They've got a higher chance of hitting the target. And also, people in general, of course this person I was playing against before didn't do this, people in general go for the middle. So it's good to either, so I mean, one of the techniques I tend to do is like two horizontal ones along the top, but not actually on the border, and three or two or whatever, the rest of them on the bottom horizontally, but again not on the border. That's the type of thing I do. Near the borders, but not on the borders. Although, of course, if you keep doing the same strategy over and over, people are going to realise that you're going to have to mix it up eventually. But anyway, yeah, that was a long time of me talking about strategies of Battleship. I'm going to end this part here. So thank you for listening, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.